Tonight, demands and disruptions on the first day of the federal workers' strike. Off the job across the country.
I'm sick of the praise. It's time for a raise.
We cannot write a blank check.
And the wrangling over remote work.
It's not a good use of my time to have to go to the office.
The Prime Minister's private take about military spending, found in a leaked U.S. document.
It hurts our credibility in terms of the reputation of the country.
The claims he told NATO Canada will never meet its funding target.
We will continue to be working on investing.
Plus, history in a bottle.
This is a secret archive of what they actually drank.
Crates of beer for a cancelled coronation, now up for auction in a new royal era.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Tens of thousands of workers representing a third of Canada's public servants have ended day one of their nationwide strike no closer to a deal. And that means you can expect disruptions at the border and delays for new passport, EI, immigration applications, and for tax refunds. A key sticking point, the ability to work remotely. And the outcome could have major implications for workplaces right across the country. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but we begin tonight with CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver on the picket lines and the ripple effects.
A rallying cry echoed across the country.
What do we want?
In 4-hour shifts, public servants packed picket lines in Barrie, shouted for solidarity in Toronto, and whistled while on the line in Calgary. At each of the more than 250 sites, a sense of frustration shared among workers involved in one of Canada's largest strikes.
We need to fight for our rights. We need to fight for wages.
We are just still back in our 2021 income, so it's definitely not up to where it should be.
The workers say they won't back down until they get the pay increases they want. 13.5% over 3 years for Treasury Board employees. The federal government is offering 9%.
And we will win this fight.
A fight that already, after just one day, has Canadians feeling the effects.
I finally found a place to park in this godforsaken one-way street area. And I come all the way down here, and I had no idea that you would close down passport offices. To me, they're essential service.
For now, passports are only being issued in urgent and humanitarian cases. That means last-minute requests, even if travel is already booked, won't be fulfilled.
If someone has a family vacation planned, it's not considered to be an essential service.
While essential services like employment insurance checks and veteran support payments will continue to go out, expect delays with new immigration applications. Citizenship ceremonies are being canceled, and there could be longer waits for consular services and import and export permits. That is raising concerns among some farmers.
On day one of the strike, maybe we don't see too much. But if this drags on for a couple months, I have grain I need to move. I have grain that's perishable. Then I get into trouble.
The two sides are still in talks, but it appears the federal government and the union, Omar, aren't ready to sign an agreement just yet.
All right, Annie, thank you. One major issue in those talks came out of the pandemic. The union wants any agreement to include the right to work from home. CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief Joyce Napier on the debate and how this negotiation may set a precedent for other workplaces.
On the picket line in person today to fight for the right to work remotely.
If I just need to come for this temporary time to be able to, in the long run, be able to stay from home and be there, it's definitely worth it.
It's one of the main demands of the striking federal workers, the right to not have to work 5 days a week in one of the offices they occupied before the pandemic.
It's not a good use of my time to have to go to the office. I don't feel that it is.
We want a substantive telework agreement.
And it seems the government is ready to concede that COVID has changed the working model, at least for the public sector.
We are implementing a hybrid work model to best deliver services, having a modern workplace that gives the flexibility to public servants to work from home 2 to 3 days a week.
That means that work from home will be enshrined in the next collective agreement of Canada's federal public workforce.
People don't want to go back to the office 9 to 5 every day. They save a lot of time without commuting. They have a better work-life balance in general. They feel they are more productive.
But others raise questions about productivity.
You go for a little walk, you play with your dog, you play with your kids.
If federal workers acquire that right, it could change the way Canadians work and what employers will have to offer.
The federal government leads the way. So it's going to have a ripple effect in the union and non-union sector. It's going to become the main bargaining demand everywhere.
In a hot labor market where unemployment is at 5%, more employees are demanding a work-life balance, the hybrid model for the future.
About 3 in 4 Canadians are saying that they want more flexibility, and that comes in 2 forms mainly. Firstly, they're looking for greater flexibility over the hours that they work. And secondly, they're looking for more flexibility over the location at which they work.
But that doesn't mean that a majority of Canadians will have that option. Nurses, doctors, police officers, and service industry workers, among others, don't have that option. Omar?
All right, Joyce Napier in Ottawa, where a day after a House of Commons committee agreed to investigate the appointment of the interim Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, her office revealed she is resigning. The news comes just 3 weeks after Martine Richard started the job. She is the sister-in-law of Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominique Leblanc, who himself was found to have breached ethics rules in 2018. Leaked Pentagon documents obtained by the Washington Post are revealing potentially concerning cracks in Canada's military and its relationship with NATO. Within the secret trove, private revelations by the Prime Minister over military spending. Here's CTV's Judy Trin.
Military secrets, allegedly leaked by a low-ranking U.S. airman on social media, have ensnared Canada's leader. The Washington Post reports that classified documents reveal that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has privately told NATO officials Canada will never meet the military alliance's pledge of spending 2% of its GDP on defense. Trudeau deflected but didn't deny.
I continue to say and will always say that Canada is a reliable partner to NATO, a reliable partner around the world.
Canada only spends 1.29% of its GDP on the military, according to NATO. It has for decades under successive governments failed to reach its target. Analysts are only surprised the Prime Minister said the quiet part out loud.
Anybody like me that actually looks at our budget math and what we're planning to spend would see that we have no intention of meeting our 2% target. So I guess the novelty there is that he's actually saying that explicitly to some of our allies.
The documents revealed Germany worries that Canada won't be able to continue assisting in Ukraine. That Turkey is disappointed Canada didn't transport humanitarian aid after February's deadly earthquake. And Haiti is allegedly frustrated Ottawa isn't stepping up to lead a mission. The opposition wants the government to do more.
Canada's always been one that has depended too heavily upon other nations to provide that collective security. We definitely have benefited from it.
One former defense official says failure to increase spending could lead to devastating results.
And that price is going to be paid by the young men and women that we put in uniform when that war eventually arrives. Because the better prepared they are, the lower the butcher's bill is going to be when the conflagration erupts.
Under Trudeau, military spending has increased, and the government plans to spend an additional $8 billion over the next 5 years. But Omar, that's nowhere close to NATO targets.
All right, Judy, thank you. Canada and other NATO members are among 14 countries collectively calling for an immediate end to the violence in Sudan. Thousands are now fleeing the capital. About 90 university students and staff trapped for 4 days were evacuated today. Caught in the crosshairs of warring military factions, people are running out of food, fuel, and medicine. Many countries are preparing to evacuate their citizens as the death toll nears 300. More than 70 people are dead and dozens injured after a stampede in Yemen's capital. Hundreds of people gathered in Sana'a for an event organized by merchants to distribute financial aid. To control the crowd, armed Houthi rebels shot in the air but struck an electrical wire. The explosion sparked panic, resulting in the crush. There is growing outrage from social media users in China tonight, accusing the government of suppressing key details about the deadliest fire in the capital in at least 2 decades. 29 people died and dozens were injured yesterday in a hospital fire, forcing patients to rappel down the building using bed sheets. Some huddled on air conditioning units. The fire started during renovation work. 12 people have been arrested for negligence. A cheerleader in Texas is in hospital tonight after being shot when a friend confused a stranger's car for her own. It's the 3rd incident this week involving young people who made a simple mistake and ended up at the wrong place. Here's CTV's Tom Walters.
I'm Peyton Washington.
18-year-old cheerleader Peyton Washington is in critical condition with gunshot wounds. She and 3 others were carpooling back from a practice. As they returned to their own cars in a supermarket parking lot, fellow cheerleader Heather Roth got into one she mistook for hers. She found a man in the passenger seat and quickly got back into the car with her friends. The man followed.
I was trying to apologize to him, and then halfway my window was down, he just threw his hands up, and then he pulled out a gun, and then he just started shooting at all of us.
Roth was grazed. Washington was shot in the back and leg and remains in intensive care. 25-year-old Pedro Rodriguez Jr. is charged with deadly conduct. Conduct that mirrors the shooting of 2 others in the past week after trivial accidental encounters. 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis was killed. Today, a New York State court denied bail for the man charged in her murder, 65-year-old Kevin Monahan.
My daughter and her friends made the mistake of pulling in his driveway, realized it, turned around, and he fired at them as they were leaving.
And in Kansas City, Missouri, 84-year-old Andrew Lester appeared in court today to plead not guilty in the shooting of 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, who did nothing more than ring Lester's doorbell when he went to the wrong house to pick up his 2 little brothers. At least 2 of the accused are claiming they fired in self-defense because they were scared. But scared of what? Going to the wrong car, turning in the wrong driveway, ringing the wrong doorbell are not threats. They're the simple mistakes anyone could make any day. Omar?
All right, Tom, thank you. Police in Alabama have charged 3 people, including 2 teen brothers, with murder after a deadly Sweet 16 birthday party over the weekend at a dance studio. CTV's Richard Madden reports.
As this small town grieves for victims of America's latest mass shooting, Alabama police announced 2 teenage brothers have been charged with reckless murder.
Even though these are 16 and 17-year-olds, we will be charging them as adults.
Hours later, a 3rd suspect, 20 years old, also charged with murder.
This is Alabama. And when you pull out a gun and you start shooting people, we're going to put you in jail.
What was supposed to be a Sweet 16 birthday celebration at a dance hall over the weekend turned into a massacre. 4 people died, more than 30 injured, most of them teenagers. Among those killed, the birthday girl's older brother, who was a college-bound athlete, and 19-year-old Messiah Collins, who was just accepted at a university. His father, Martin, demanding justice.
How many kids are we going to bury before this stops?
Bree Hutchinson was struck by gunfire.
We were just having fun listening to music. And then, next thing you know, we just heard gunshots.
With more than 160 mass shootings this year alone, tonight, urgent calls to break America's cycle of gun violence.
We shouldn't accept this shoot-first culture at kids, at cheerleaders, as our new reality. It's a choice.
Alabama police still won't reveal a motive or a possible connection between the suspects and the victims. State prosecutors are pushing to have all the accused held in custody without bail. Omar.
Richard Madden in Washington tonight, where the U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily extended access to the country's most commonly used abortion drug. The justices now have until Friday night to decide whether to uphold a lower court ruling to restrict access to the pill. The province of Newfoundland and Labrador has agreed to pay $13 million for 32 schools currently owned by the Roman Catholic Church.
It's a historical legacy of denominational education that has now been resolved.
Some of the schools involved in the tentative deal were at the center of a lengthy sexual abuse scandal involving the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of St. John's, which was found liable for the abuse that occurred at the notorious Mount Cashel orphanage in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The church is liquidating assets to compensate victims. Coming up after the break, the wrap on waste.
We've got something we need to do about this. We've got to change it.
Plastic grievances at the grocery store. Plus, the spring snowstorm pummeling the prairies. From the depths of the ocean to mountain peaks, plastic pollution has become a significant environmental threat. And now a new cross-country report has concluded it may have to do with our food, and that nearly 2/3 of the 40,000 food products surveyed in grocery stores were packaged in plastic. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy on the findings and the policy fault lines.
Canadians toss out a massive amount of plastic, more than 3 million tons every year, with much of it single-use products and packaging. While there's a federal ban aimed at reducing the waste, a new report says it's woefully inadequate, pointing to grocery stores as a growing part of the problem.
Plastic should not be a throwaway item.
Karen Mersick headed an environmental defense study analyzing plastic use in high-traffic stores like Sobeys, Loblaws, and Walmart.
No matter where you shop at the major grocery stores, you're going to come home with plastic.
The audit focused on 4 areas: produce, pet food, soup, and baby products, with the latter the worst offender of the bunch. According to the report, 76% of all baby food was packaged in plastic.
This has happened in a few short years where glass bottles and jars, for example, are being replaced by plastic pouches.
The produce aisle was also a heavy plastic zone, with only 27% of products free from added packaging. A baffling statistic to some customers, considering most fruit and vegetables already have a natural protective peel or skin.
I don't understand it, why would they need to package it up. Like sometimes it's 2 and 3 packages.
I think there's a lot, so we've got something we need to do about this.
Last year, the federal government banned the manufacture and import of some single-use plastics, including checkout bags and cutlery. But the study concludes that's far from enough.
Our top recommendation is for the federal government to expand the ban, as well as to help really scale up reuse and refill options in grocery stores.
As for the role of grocers, Environmental Defense is calling on them to reduce plastic waste, starting by unwrapping all produce. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
Any signs of spring in southern Saskatchewan were quashed today as Environment Canada issued winter storm warnings across the region. The storm forced a number of highways to shut down. The wintry weather is expected to stick around until tomorrow, with up to 40 centimeters of snow predicted. In central Japan, a popular sightseeing trail with snow walls up to 13 meters or 43 feet high has fully reopened after being shut down for the winter. It takes months for plows to carve the cold corridor in the Japanese Alps, which remains open until the end of June. And still ahead, the high-flying stunt to send a political message. Climbing way up to trigger a government climb down on pension reform. A solemn ceremony was held today to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. The presidents of Poland, Israel, and Germany We're joined by Holocaust survivors to remember the hundreds of young Jews who fought Nazi German forces for nearly a month before the Nazis destroyed the ghetto. 13,000 Jews were killed. The fight against raising the retirement age in France was taken to new heights today. 60-year-old daredevil Alain Robert, known as the French Spider-Man, scaled a 38-story skyscraper to send a message to French President Emmanuel Macron, telling him to, quote, come back down to earth after pushing the law through without a vote in Parliament. And the global tour of a highly coveted prize in women's soccer paid a visit to Canada today.
3, 2, 1.
The FIFA Women's World Cup trophy was in Toronto, with the big event in Australia and New Zealand now only 3 months away. Canada will be one of 32 nations competing. The trophy is made of gold-plated bronze and polished aluminum and weighs nearly 5 kilograms. After the break,
it also had a sherry taste and a taste of blue cheese.
Opening a batch of nearly 90-year-old beer just in time for the coronation. The day before the coronation of King Charles next month, an auction will take place with a taste of history up for sale. CTV's Danielle Hamamjian on some long-lost crates of beer with an incredible royal connection.
In the dusty cellar of the Green King Brewery, beer for a king who was never crowned. Covered in cobwebs, a batch of coronation ale brewed 86 years ago and never sold.
It's every historian's dream to find a secret archive, and this is a secret archive of what they actually drank in 1936.
The British Empire faces an extraordinary crisis.
A crisis triggered by King Edward VIII, who was faced with a choice: the crown or the woman he loved.
There have been rumors that he might elope with her and abandon crown and throne for her.
It was unthinkable at the time. How could a divorced woman be queen and married to the head of the Church of England?
The king holds that marriage is his own private affair, and he's strong-willed and determined.
And so King Edward followed his heart and said goodbye to the throne.
I have never wanted to withhold anything.
And goodbye to the coronation ale that went down to the cellar and was forgotten about, only to be discovered more than a decade ago during building work. But now,
ladies and gentlemen,
it's got a good reason to resurface. On the eve of Charles's coronation next month, several crates will be auctioned off for charity.
A beer expert tried it in 2012 and said it had a very strong taste of your grandma's trifle, and it also had a sherry taste and a taste of blue cheese.
If you think it's all a bit odd, a reminder that a piece of Charles and Diana's wedding cake was sold for more than $2,000 40 years after their big day. And my, how times have changed. The crown will soon be placed on the head of a king himself divorced, as is his queen. Danielle Hamamjian, CTV News, London.
Not sure about the blue cheese taste. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Good night.